What is up, freaks and geeks and creeps of all ages? Welcome back to The Final Guys, right here on Corpses for Conversation podcast, where we down beers and take you on a deeper dive into the darkest depths of trashy horror films, from the classics you love to hate to the latest in horror cinema. Allow me to introduce our panel today of horror enthusiasts. We have that toxic son of a bitch, Toxic J.
Dude, that goalie was pissed about something.
That clown school reject, Dimebag the Clown.
Hell sweet, dark meat.
And I, your host with the most and everyone's favorite massacre man, SoCal Leatherface. You want some free advice? Coffee. Make friends with it. And today we have a 20th anniversary for Freddy Vs. Jason from 2003. And this episode is just too big for just the three of us final guys. So we had to resurrect a corpse for this one. Ladies and gentlemen, Richard Zahn.
From your grave.
Hey, from the grave I rise to give you guys some awesome knowledge on this film. Well, not really knowledge, because TJ will crap all over me for it. But I will say, man, the torpedoes.
So with all four of us here, let's crack open that casket, see what's on the slab, and let this disposal begin.
All right, guys. So how are we feeling today on this 20th anniversary? Damn, I can't believe it's already 20 years since Freddy vs. Jason came out.
Years, man.
I'll say it because you say it every time, TJ. You know, with Dime, man, I feel old, dude. 20 years, man, I feel old.
Time does fly. I remember catching this one.
Where were you 20 years ago, August 15th?
I remember when I was a young,
Back in my day,
30-year-old Dimebag the Clown. Dude,
I don't want to remember. No.
Man, I can't remember what happened 2 weeks ago, let alone 20 years ago.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I was actually in high school at the time.
There he goes again. Throwing his age out
All
there.
right, episode's over. Cut it out.
My dad was the one that took me to go see this in theaters. My mom's really not a fan of horror at all.
Little SoCal, Daddy, can I go see it?
I mean, I was in high school, so it was a little like, hey, Dad, can I see it? No. But yeah, I went to go check out this one in theater. Just me and my dad. It was a really good time. I was really getting into the whole Jason and Freddy in high school. I feel like that's when I hit horror. It was introduced to me more in middle school, but by high school, I was all in. So when I found out a brand new film was coming down, throwing these two icons of horror together, I had to check that one out.
Now, see, now that you said that, though, SoCal, I got to ask you, TJ, because you used to go to movies a lot with your dad. Would this be one of those films your dad would want to see, or he'd be like, that's stupid, I'm not going to go watch that?
Actually, no. I did not go see it with him. At least I don't remember. Like Dime said, it is 20 years ago. I actually saw this movie 4 times in theater, and
Loser.
I don't think I think at that point my dad was just so over the horror thing, in which my dad was the one who introduced me to horror films. I think I asked him, hey, you want to go? And he's like, no, I'm good. You know?
How'd I know?
Yeah, and no, you're right. And then he was like, it was funny because I forgot what movie I was watching. I think it was a year before in 2002. I don't even remember. I was buying a ticket to whatever at the time. And then there was a guy in line, and he saw that, remember Jason X? I think it came out the year before. So like roughly around that year. And he goes, man, they still making Jason movies? I got tired of him in the 80s. I started laughing.
And mind you, I mean, a lot of kids out there listening to this is like, wow, he went 4 times to the theater to actually go see this movie. Back then, 20 years ago, you literally had to wait a whole year for this to be released on physical media. Like nowadays, it's released like a month later after the movie comes out.
So you get your money's worth or your views worth, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Straight to streaming.
It had time to build that hype. Now it's like, in the next 5 minutes, we have a new blockbuster movie on the block for you. It's like,
After watching the older Friday films and Freddy films, the thing that really stuck out in this particular movie was the soundtrack. I really liked the music that was here.
Yeah, soundtracks back in the day were good. Like Freddy vs. Jason, Bride of Chucky had a great soundtrack.
Well, Bride of Chucky soundtrack was way better than Bride of Chucky itself. So
yeah,
even My Bloody Valentine soundtrack, classic.
Queen of the Damned, another one, great soundtrack.
Yeah, I was talking to my dad about it after we had left the theater, and we went straight to Warehouse Music, and I picked up the CD. I still have it to this day.
Nice.
Wow, they're no longer non-existent or the non-existing.
So you literally paid like $40 for a soundtrack, because like they sold their stuff like wholesale. You know, I would never buy anything. That, you know, in my 20s I was broke, so you know I just scraped all my pennies.
that phantom address ripping off Columbia. Like, oh yeah, I'll get 10 CDs for a penny.
I did the same thing, man.
Yeah, but the prices 20 years ago were not as much as they were today. The album was like $14.99.
Well, see, the thing is too, I never shopped at any of those music stores because at the time I was actually working at a record store.
So you didn't have to.
Yeah, I didn't have to. It was called Music Exchange, and man, and it's funny because 20 years later after that store closed, I get random people in random places that go, "Hey, didn't you work at a place called Music Exchange?" I'm like, "Oh crap, you remember that?" Still get that to this day.
Yeah, you're a dick.
No, I probably was. You know,
you were like Randall from Clerks, man. He's like, "What do you want?"
I was a dick, or I'm still a dick.
Both. But we love you, man.
Forever toxic.
This whole Freddy vs. Jason thing dates back way to the 80s. New Line Cinema had their Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Paramount Pictures had their Friday the 13th franchise. And even back in the 80s, in the heart of these series, or the prime, so to speak, like they were already thinking about crossover, you know? So I can only imagine that would have been great if at the peak of their stardom, or whatever you want to call it, how would that had gone down? I mean, my opinion, I think it was too soon, at least for those characters to clash.
Back then, yeah, and then you have actors too contractually that they're gonna debate and kind of fight about that, because back then collab films were like a death sentence. So they really try to stay away from that kind of stuff unless they knew the script was really good. So with you saying that, Toxic, I 100%, if it was the script they saw, which was the movie currently, and the actors, they would have stepped away like, oh, no, we ain't touching this at all, dude. You go find someone else. Like, we ain't doing it.
Just like the classic films when we had Frankenstein versus the Wolfman or Dracula versus Frankenstein. There were already crossovers going on since.
But 50s,
but
the thing with those were like all in the same company.
And the actors actually sat in on the writing with that. It wasn't just independently written without them having their advisory say about it.
And mind you, if Robert Englund getting older, let's say they would have waited a few years down the road, he would have said, you know what, I'm done with Robert Englund, or I'm done with Freddy Krueger.
I'm done with
Robert Englund telling himself, I'm done with Robert Englund.
No, he said, I'm done with Freddy Krueger. Would it work if they actually got somebody else to play Freddy Krueger? Probably
they tried that, and
it didn't.
They did, and it sucked.
Well, since you brought that up, Dime, did anyone see it in the news recently? And since I did talk about it before we recorded, supposedly Blumhouse is going to be trying to reboot Nightmare on Elm Street and bring back Robert Englund to reprise as well as Freddy, even though he straight up said he's done with that.
It's all going to depend on how Exorcist does, I believe. My opinion,
depend on the big check they're going to give that dude.
Exactly.
He already had stated that he's done with it physically. Now he's listening, but he hasn't really committed to anything, like his injured back, and he's getting older. He can't do the physical stunt work. What I've heard, this is not from a reliable source, from fan theories and everything like that. I know we're going a little off topic, but just to keep everyone updated, do you remember when Freddy's Dead came out? I think Sam Raimi or Robert I don't remember. Someone was interested. Oh, it was oh my god, Peter Jackson. There it goes. Peter Jackson wanted to direct Freddy's Dead. I think it was Peter Jackson. So his story kind of goes where everyone has forgotten about Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger's powerless. He is super weak. And kids fall asleep just to go into their dreams to kick the crap out of Freddy Krueger. That's how
everybody punking Freddy.
Yeah, that's how the story was until Freddy actually kills someone and, kind of just gives him a little bit of strength to
revitalizes himself a little bit.
Point being, and obviously that never didn't happen, that would kind of be like somewhat of the premise of the new Nightmare. They would try to, punk Freddy, and he can play an old, decrepit version of what he once was, and he manages to kill someone, kind of rejuvenates his energy, but at the same time, he, if you want to call it, he evolves, and he can change into a different actor or a different being.
Jason Goes to Hell moment where he's going to be transferring his body or his soul into other bodies. I'm not down with
it's
that.
within the Nightmare universe, so that you can get away with. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, I said it once and I'll say it a million times. Like, Jason Goes to Hell was trash.
I'm cracking up over here because as TJ is talking about that storyline, I'm laughing in the background because I don't know why. In my mind, I did a comparison. It's like, of course, you can see the Rocky movie premise. Like, you'll have a coach come out of the corner. You're a bum, Freddy. You're worth nothing. You're a scum.
What's the matter? You got nothing left inside, huh? Because you're training like a damn bum, you know that?
Bum.
A bum.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I ain't got it no more.
All right. Then don't you waste my time no more. You hear that? Go away. Go back to the docks where you belong. You go back to being a two-bit nothing. But don't you ever come back here again to waste my time trying to train a no-good loser like you bum.
You're washed up. It's over. Get out of here. I'm like, oh my God.
No, he'll be like, I didn't hear no bell, bitch.
Cut me, man.
Don't want to do it. Cut it. Try it. Cut it.
You're a bum, Freddy. You're a bum. You're nothing. You're never going to kill nobody again. You're washed up. It's over.
You can't kill him, Freddy. He's like, I'm scared, all right? I'm scared.
I'm afraid! All right? You want to hear me say it? You want to break me down? All right, I'm afraid. For the first time in my life, I'm afraid.
You want to hear me say it?
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, with Tony Todd for the new Candyman film, they
That
just
worked in pretty good, too.
CGI'd they CGI'd his face. If they were to do something like that for Freddy with the reboot and just take his likeness and his voice, but have someone else do the heavy lifting when it comes to the body movements, it could work.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Or Stunto, we'll just have him, in the costume. Don't have him do the physical work,
That's what they kind of did with Freddy versus Jason. And I'm glad you pointed that out. And then, as the episode progresses, I'll explain, how that all came about. With this failure of Jason X, and then they announced Freddy versus Jason coming out a year later, there was not a lot of hype going into this. They announced the director, Ronnie Yu. Now, if anyone knows, Ronnie Yu directed The Bride of Chucky. And me personally, I thought was like one of the worst in the series. So I was on that page and like, oh, man, really? But then I started to listen, and I don't know. I want to say he poured more love into Freddy versus Jason than he did in the Child's Play franchise.
That definitely was a revitalization of the whole idea of Chucky as well. It's like he took a franchise that already existed and put a complete twist on it that could have been a failure, but it had many sequels after, including a show based off of his work.
I mean, if you could look at it that way, yeah, I guess you're right in a weird way. With Friday being a dead franchise, Nightmare being a dead franchise, they took a chance. They fronted the money. The budget was like $30 million. That's still kind of a lot for a horror film.
Especially 20 years ago.
Yeah, by today's standards, that's still a pretty penny.
See, and that gets me mad. $30 million budget. And I'm saying this, I said it before the episode, I'm saying it right now. The one thing that really pissed me off about this Jason, why did you have to make him go look like Sea Hag from Popeye? Little strands of hair, look like a parking lot lizard. He looked
And you know
horrible.
what? That's not the worst thing.
For
Jason.
me, that's the worst.
No, I think the worst was I don't think it, but the whole fans do. They replaced Kane Hodder as Jason Voorhees. And then they hired his.
You can tell this Jason was shorter.
Yeah, of course. This was what's his name?
Ken Herzinger.
Now, at
Who
first,
was actually killed by quote unquote by Kane Hodder in Jason Takes Manhattan.
So maybe he just resurrected his transferring the soul. Kind of type thing.
Mm-hmm. He actually did stunt for Kane Hodder as well in that same movie, Jason Takes Manhattan.
I believe it was
scenes.
the sewer scene. I believe was one of them.
That's something that really stuck out to me is that Ken Kersinger, he's mostly a stuntman. He's been a stuntman in a lot of things, not too much a lead role actor. Jason doesn't talk, so it didn't take much out of him to just kind of walk the walk, but that's an interesting decision to get a stuntman to be the main character.
Is he like 6 foot, right under 6 foot?
6'5".
Yeah, he's the tallest Jason to date.
Yeah, that's
well, no,
Kane's
tall. Like what, 6'8" at his peak. Kane was almost 6'8".
He's not
right?
6'8". He was
He
not
was
6'8".
6'3", I think.
Dude,
Yeah.
That can't be, because when I met him in real life, Kane was taller than me, and at that time I was 6'4".
So you had to see
Kane
when
Hodder.
Kane is taller than Kane.
No, wait.
When I met Kane Hodder in person, he was like that
But I'm
Much
saying
taller than
Ken is taller than Kane. I know, tongue twister.
Yeah, Ken is 6'5", and then Kane Hodder. I'm looking him up right now.
Yeah, Kane Hodder is 6'2".
6'2".
No way.
Mm-hmm.
He must have been on platforms then when I met him.
Yeah, because and even if you look in Friday the 13th Part 8, cheap plug, go check out our other episode based on that.
Yeah, yep.
When he was the cook, Jason throws the cook through the mirror. Like, you could tell that Ken had to crouch a little. At first, I was like everybody else. I'm pretty sure you guys were like that. Oh, hell no. Why did they do that? Blah, 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 blah. But walking out of that theater for the first time, I understood why. And it made more sense. And it wouldn't have worked as good as it did in the movie if Kane Hodder stood.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Robert Englund.
His attire also wasn't as form fitting, because when Kane Hodder played Jason, he would fill out. You saw like the statuesque Jason. This, you can tell like his clothing was a little loose on him. It was a little more beefed up, so it kind of threw off the cadence of the dominating presence of what you're used to seeing in Jason.
Yeah, Robert Englund's only 5'10", so 5'10" going up 6'5". It's definitely a size difference there.
We'll catch the fade. We'll catch the fade.
So, what did you guys think about the story? Because the story was written by Damian Shannon and Mark Swift. No relation to Taylor Swift, which I don't think so. Those guys put pen to paper, and then obviously it ended up on the screen. I like the writing, and I like the story. For people that haven't seen it, once again, it's been 20 years, so there's no excuse not to. Freddy is weak. Freddy has no powers. He can barely get through. The town of Elm Street found out a way to forget about him. Having all these kids that come in contact with him, taking hypnocell because they don't remember, therefore they can't dream. So, and all the new generation kids don't even know who Freddy Krueger was. He realizes that, and he needs a body to put fear back into the kids. That's where Jason Voorhees comes in.
That's kind of a trip when you think about it. The whole town forgot about him because the whole town's like, what are we going to do? Well, everyone's going to drug themselves. We're all going to take this medication.
What about those public service announcements? Stay off drugs. No, we'll just give drugs to the town.
I did notice that Wes Craven and Victor Miller were both also credited as writers for this film. Wes Craven being the Freddy creator, the writer and everything, and Victor Miller having to do with the Friday franchise.
Yeah, a creative standpoint.
Yeah, it did have a solid storyline, but the fact that it had 17 scripts to work with, most of the scripts actually involve having cults resurrect Freddy Krueger to come back and kill all these teenagers.
I think at one point they were going to put him in a boxing ring. I don't know if I heard that right, but
I heard about that.
That would have been stupid.
And some kind of game show. They were going to do a game show type thing too. Like, I guess
it'd be a celebrity death match in this quarter. Freddy, in this quarter, Jason. Let's have at it. Let's go.
See, now, if you guys remember the advertising and the commercials for this film, there was a line that was constantly repeated yet stricken from the film because when they had the test views, people just thought it was cheesy and out of place and ridiculous. But the main tagline for this was Freddy vs. Jason, place your bets. They really wanted people to give into this whole, there's a fight between two icons. Who are you betting for? I wouldn't be surprised if people put some type of money aside actually making bets on this movie before it came out.
Well, if you look at the original promo posters as well, it looked like a title fight. You had them both facing each other.
Oh, that's
even though Freddy had the glove on the wrong
poster,
hand.
Though. That's still a great poster.
Yeah, but Freddy had the glove on the wrong hand.
And I'm glad you bring it up that way, Dime, because they did have a weigh-in for Freddy and Jason where they got both actors to come in full get-up in Las Vegas. And just as a way of hyping this even more, they even hired Michael Buffer to be the announcer to give his what's in this corner.
Introducing first to my right. With over 1,000 career kills, he's come back to life 7 times. Hailing from Elm Street, the man with the killer right hand, the Springwood slasher, Freddy Krueger. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to my left, his opponent. Over 1,200 kills, 10 times resurrected, and he's got one mean machete. Ladies and gentlemen, from Camp Crystal Lake, introducing the Tower of Power, Jason Voorhees. Gentlemen, please, at this time, we would like to have the weigh-in. Could you please step backstage here behind it? Mr. Kruger, Mr. Voorhees, please. Back here, please.
You're slow, you're stupid, and you're all washed up.
Jason, there's been a great deal of controversy about your training methods. How do you respond to that?
No comment.
What's the matter? Can't you speak for yourself, hockey puck?
Senor Freddy, what do you anticipate will be your most difficult challenge in fighting Jason?
Waiting to see if this Goldie here can find the ring.
Freddy.
Whaty?
Do you feel your ability to speak and thus talk trash gives you a distinct advantage in intimidating Jason before your big fights?
I don't need no stinking distinct advantage. If Mama's boy here, he's big, he's dumb, he's slow, he's stupid, and he ain't got no style. Place your bets, people. See in the ring, Voorhees.
They did
I can
the
just hear
whole
him in the
shebang.
background.
Yeah,
Will
it's
the dream
actually
of
on
being
the
top dog happen, or will the nightmare continue on forever?
for the special features for the first release of Freddy vs. Jason. That on the special features, yeah, you could see that, and actually, it's hilarious. And there were a lot of people that showed up, like fans.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't own the physical media, you can look this up on YouTube. Just look up the Las Vegas weigh-in for Freddy vs. Jason. It's all there.
And I loved how Freddy Krueger was just insulting Jason like over and over, and then you see that just like dumbfounded look, Jason like, huh?
With his one droopy eye, just looking like kind of sad. That was good on Robert
I always
Englund.
hope you just see like not him take a slash at Freddy, but because of all that smack talking going on from Freddy's side, I always just wanted to see like Jason turn his blade sideways and just like machete slap him across the face. Like,
So what happened was like a supposed brawl, like, you know, and they added the sound effects, and then I think from what I can remember, Freddy took it like they, you know, the face-to-face confrontation, and then Freddy kind of flicks his fingers, and then Jason goes off, and then they had to be pulled apart and all this other stuff. What kind of ruined that moment for me, and it's so stupid and it's like little, is when Ken moved, is like his lower part of his like stomach showed, and it was his actual like skin and not like prosthetic makeup. I'm like, he doesn't have clear skin like that. But it was still
or how many tattoos happened from this movie because of that cover art with them going face to face. I saw that tattoo so much when that movie came out. I was just like, really?
I actually had one of the bus posters, you know, the little posters that they put in the bus stop. I saw a crime. No, I saw the guy. I saw the guy taking it off. And I'm like, hey, you know what? You think I could get that poster? He's like, you can take it off the truck. I ain't gonna see you take it. You know, I guess it is a crime to actually own that.
Okay, you know, it's funny. I'm glad that you brought that up because at least you had a better experience than I did. So I remember, like, I remember
the story. I remember.
Yeah.
The story.
You do remember.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
I think because we started hanging out like about 2003, right? Roughly.
Yeah,
2004. Yeah. So going to wrestling shows and everything.
Yep.
At the time, you know, they don't really have too many bus stop posters nowadays, but they were everywhere. And now, back in 2003, my dumbass and my sister, another dumbass.
I might have to mute my mic because I'm just keep busting up in the background.
Okay, so we were scoping out like bus stop posters, and it's right by where kind of like maybe about 5-10 minutes where I live now. I think I went around 11:30 midnight, right, with a hammer and a pair of wrenches and all this other stuff.
We're getting a felony confession here, everyone.
Dom's cousin.
You better hope the statute of limitations is over.
Dom's cousin, you know, Poison was the getaway driver.
Any other name drops?
Yeah. So wait.
Witnesses.
Implicating your wife on the podcast.
If you want to know how we did it, our address is.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last episode of Corpses for Conversation.
So you guys are laughing and you guys won't even let me finish the story. This is probably another.
Know where it's going.
It's probably another 2-hour episode. Back to the story. Me and my sister, I told my sister, "Hey, just look out for any cops." So because I've done this before. So I did it with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Just added 5 more years to it.
The Spider-Man poster, 2002.
Oh, Jesus. The crimes just keep stacking.
Yeah. So, isn't it like after a certain amount of time goes by, it's forgettable? I don't know.
You better hope.
You guys gonna let me finish my story? You guys or just laugh the whole time. I told my sister to, be the lookout person. She's like, okay, so I'm doing what I'm doing and stuff like that. And my sister goes, well, who am I looking out for? Well, obviously the police or anything coming in her direction. She goes, okay, so I let you know when the cops are like anywhere near. I'm like, yes, and I'm still doing what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, they're right in front of us. I'm like, you son of a I'm like, why didn't you tell me ahead of time? Well, they weren't there at the time. I'm like, no, the lights get flashed on
I
us.
think what's going to happen. No, they turn on the lights.
they're like, the lights get flashed on us. And he's like, what are you guys doing? And at this point, I couldn't lie, because I had a wrench and a hammer and all what I needed behind my back. I was just honest with them. I'm like, I wanted this poster. Okay. I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. And it was 2 cops. It was a man and a woman. And then they just kind of looked at each other. And they started laughing. They were like, well, you know what? Okay, at least you were honest with us. I'm not, let me see your ID, blah, 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 blah. And like, we can take you in. I'm like, yes, I know. So we're not. And you know what? We're just going to drive away. We didn't see anything of this. And then I looked at my sister like, huh? So they drove away. I guess, honesty is the best policy,
They were horror fans too.
So
they were horror fans too, yeah.
And I think the only people that were watching us also,
they didn't want to do the paperwork.
I think that was it. I mean, if they were low on their quotas, of course.
Oh, they would have rolled you up like that poster. Yeah,
and at this point, your cousin took off.
Right. That's my family. Peace out, sucker.
Yo.
Sucker.
He was like, deuces.
So I didn't have a cell phone at the time, and she did, so I had to use a payphone. She goes, oh, you guys are not busted? I'm like, no. I go, we have the poster. And you know what? It was totally worth it, because to this day, I still have that poster in my closet right now. And
you'll never let that poster go.
I will never let that poster go.
Attached to it.
I actually ended up selling it for like $500.
No, I will never let that go. I actually took 2 posters. The first time I didn't get caught. I don't know if this is the first or second time, but the person that I got it for, he thought it was cool to just cut it up and just put Freddy versus Jason and just 2 figures. I'm like, bro, this thing is going to be worth something someday. That's
it was
my
a double-sided
story.
one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's my story for it. So when I turn my future garage into like a video store, which I will, that poster is going to be front and center.
Nice.
Nice.
I know. Everyone okay
Wipe
now?
away my tears and my ribs are hurting. That shit was great. Oh my gosh.
So like I said, the budget for this was $30 million. The end take at this was 116.6 mil. So they actually made bank off this.
Oh yeah.
I think it only got, I don't know, like horror films, like we talked about this. Well, there was no Rotten Tomatoes back in the day. At least I don't think so. I don't know. Internet was still very new.
Oh,
Yes, that's how old we are.
I don't think it existed back then.
The critics didn't really care for it, but for like horror fans, like I loved it enough to go watch it 4 times in the theater. Played the soundtrack constantly. Like one of my favorite bands at the time was Il Nino. Strange enough, I didn't like the album that this song was on, but it was everywhere, man. And it was all word of mouth. Word of mouth. I was just telling, hey, you got to go check this out. This is dope. Blah, the fight scenes. XYZ.
Bands like Spine Shank, Seven Dust, Typo Negative, El Nino, Chimera, Mushroom Head. Dude, these are like heavy hitters back
Power
in the
Man 5000.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah. Then they had Slipknot's demo for Snap.
Yep.
I played that song so many times.
Dude, 11th Hour by Lamb of God was on there, man. I'm like, bro, how can you get any harder than that?
And you know what? It's funny. I got into the In Flames because of the soundtrack. And then that song was so good. I'm like, God damn, this thing's so amazing.
They had Killswitch Engage on there as well. And the funny thing is, if you list these bands to the young ones today, they haven't heard of more than half of them. And people don't know who Killswitch Engage is anymore. Power Man 5000.
Roadrunner Records is the one that put them
after the original vocals left. So
like Roadrunner at the time was hot.
Yeah.
It's garbage now.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then it was big, dude. So I actually went to the world premiere at the Cinerama Dome at the time. I mean, it no longer exists, which was a great theater. A bunch of celebrities were there. Robert Englund was there with his wife, and I believe his kids, and the thing was packed. Like obviously, I'd never been to a premiere. So my friend at the time said, dude, go talk to Robert Englund, because he was only a few seats ahead of us. And then I was like, no, man, I was way too shy and all this other stuff. But then I stood in the aisle for a good 3 minutes and contemplated. Like,
stared at him?
No, because I was like, you know what? I will never get this opportunity ever again. I walked up to him because I saw him walking. I just waited because I didn't want to do it in the theater. He stopped and looked at me, and he literally said hi. I was like, whoa, he said something to me first. And then I go, I just have to say Mr. Englund. He goes, oh, don't call me Mr. Englund. That's my dad. I was like, oh, okay. I'm not kissing your ass or anything, but I love this movie. It was so good. And it's everything I ever wanted in a crossover. And he was like, he goes, really? He goes, and dude, he talked to me for 30 minutes.
Nice.
That's dope, dude.
And it was just me and him. He could tell, like, I was young. I think I was like 21, 22. And like, he took the time to answer everything I ever asked or wanted to know about him and his career. I asked about, because he was in the Mangler, Phantom of the Opera remake, and 976 Evil. So he liked the fact that I knew his like filmography.
You weren't able to catch a photo of that, or no?
No, I didn't.
I didn't have a phone.
I didn't have a phone.
That'd have been awesome if you did.
So back then, would we have the wind-up cameras?
Yeah.
Disposable.
The fact that's why when he's been at conventions before, I didn't pay to see him. And I'm not knocking anyone that does that, but just the fact that, like, he's a real human being and he is the nicest person. And your cousin, actually, Poison, she was working at Coffee Bean at the time and met him multiple times and said the same thing, that he is the nicest person ever. For being his character being a child murderer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This was Robert Englund's 8th time, donning the razor glove as Freddy, and his last time. And maybe it was the kind words from the fans with the success of Freddy vs. Jason that really let him know that if he were to go out right now, he can go out on a high note.
Technically, it was not his last time. Last time on film, but not last time on camera. Any of you guys seen the Goldbergs?
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay.
I just
so
popped into my
I heard about that. I don't know if I watched it. I heard about it.
He did a guest appearance in a dream sequence as Freddy Krueger himself. He was a little pudgier, but but he still did it. And he was like in the majority of the episode as Fred Krueger.
Where'd you go?
Freddy's coming for you. 3, 4, you better lock your door.
Excuse me. Hi. I lost my little baby. His name's Adam, goes by Shmoo.
Shmoo's not here.
I take it you work here?
Try again.
Yeah, I don't have time for games. I lost my son.
Bad mom, you lost her little brat.
I'm sorry. Who do you think you are?
Your worst nightmare.
Whatever, I don't care what happens to me. I'm already living my worst nightmare.
Huh? I thought I was doing a pretty damn good job here.
No, you're great with the knifey hands and the melting candle face. It's just... Adam said he wished I wasn't his mother.
Oh, geez, that's an awful thing to say. I'm gonna kill him.
No, the more I think about it, I deserved what Adam said. I was terrible to Jackie's parents.
Parents? Who needs them? I never knew any of my fathers, and I turned out just fine.
I don't see how that applies to me, but...
This is getting way too touchy-feely for this cowboy. It's time to die!
No. Time to get my son back.
Hey, I say the around here, lady.
Not anymore, Mr. Kroger.
Kruger! It's Kroger!
So that was technically his last time. And I believe that was like maybe about 3-4 years ago.
That was our Halloween episode, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. Great show.
He actually would appear in some sitcoms back in like the 80s, early 90s. He actually appeared in Married with Children, where Al Bundy went to Al Bundy went to hell, and he was the devil. He sold his soul to him.
Yeah, I remember that too.
He sold his soul to play on the Chicago Bears, and he goes, "I want to go all the way to the Super Bowl."
Man, what I wouldn't give to play for the Chicago Bears! I would sell my soul to play for the Bears.
Good afternoon. I'm Lucifer.
Peg, one of your relatives. Peg, Jefferson.
They can't hear you. I've frozen them.
Hey, these are two of the laziest people on earth. You want to impress me? Make them get jobs.
I'm the devil, not a genie.
What do you want?
Your soul, Mr. Bundy.
Deal.
Tom Arnold put up more of a fight.
Okay, so you can have my soul, but I get to play for the Chicago Bears and take them to a Super Bowl.
And he was the
but
oldest
not
rookie.
win the Super Bowl.
But he could not. He goes, no, you never said to go and win the Super Bowl. I said I would agree to get you to the Super Bowl.
Get you to the Super Bowl, yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it when Al was bartering with him. Like, why don't you take my wife? And he goes, hey, I'm trying to keep my job. I was like, yeah, dude.
So even the devil himself, Robert Englund, was afraid of Peggy Bundy.
Yeah, he had a good time. He had a good time in hell. Nothing that he was doing would work on him. But then when he found out that the worst thing about it was his family.
Mr. Bundy, your permanent accommodations are now ready.
Oh, great. I'm ready, Lou.
Here we are. I hope this is to your liking.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. What are you guys doing down here?
Well, we're taking your body to the dump. I mean, the cemetery. When the brakes went out on the Dodge.
Al Bundy, this is all your fault.
Are you happy now?
No, not until you're as miserable as you can possibly be.
How can it get any more miserable than this? Of course. What happened?
I was dancing next to your grave. I slipped on some confetti, and the next thing you know, here I am.
How'd you get here?
It was a conga line.
Lou, listen to me. I'm begging you. Can't you put me somewhere else?
Have a nice eternity.
You go to here, you bastard!
He just sent him back with his family because they all died too.
Now, let me ask you this, man. This project had many directors set to direct this, including James Wan, but he was busy with Saw at the moment.
Imagine what that film could have been.
But for Zom, what if Rob Zombie actually directed this movie?
Oh, I would have loved it, but TJ would have crapped all over it.
It would have been like a white trash Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I would have loved it because, well, aside Sherry Moon Zombie playing the lead woman in it.
Mm-hmm. She would probably have been Freddy.
No, she would have been Jason's mom.
Yeah, so
Sure.
the only advantage of having Rob direct it is we would get legendary B-rated horror movie icons like, Sid Haig would have been involved in it and Bill Moseley would have been in it. But other than that...
So instead of
cool.
Monica, what's her name? Monica Keena playing Laurie, it would be Sherry Moon Zombie.
Something like that. I mean, I feel like they would have went
He was
really
like 30
heavy.
something playing like a teenager. Welcome
would have
to my
went-
world, bitch. Something stupid like that.
They would have went really heavy on the fact of calling Jason like a hillbilly. It would have been like really graphic stuff, and he's some type of bumpkin or whatever. And then they would have went really heavy and graphic into Freddy being some type of child molester. We would have gotten some very offensive scenes.
Oh yeah,
I could already
or
tell.
how TJ would point out in the Halloween remakes that he can't stand that Rob did. It would have been the first time you would have heard Jason be verbal and grunt and say certain things.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Make Freddy the mute and Jason the talker, right?
But the soundtrack would have been on par, though, if Rob was involved. It would have been another good soundtrack as well.
For sure. It would have been like 70s classic rock. But...
Watching this, do you guys think this movie aged well? And I'll get into how I feel about that, but what do you guys think?
I believe it does. It still holds up today. I mean, I watched it about 2 weeks ago, I want to say.
A bajillion times.
Like I said, I've seen it dozens of times. And I just watched it 2 weeks ago. And it still does hold up today.
I mean, on the opposite end of that, I just watched this movie a few times in the past 2 days. I really feel that there's a lot about it that does not hold up. When it comes to the cinematography, I think it was filmed great. I think the filters look great. The script is just kind of trash. The storyline is just, they tried. Like you said, we went through many writers.
That's what damaged it.
And the overall outcome of everything, it's like the characters knew too much. They knew the whole story plot. And they would just be, oh, I think that Jason is killing people because Freddy was forgotten. And if we do this, then he'll come back. Like, they knew the whole story plot. In most films, they're trying to wonder why this is happening. These guys knew everything. And I just thought that was weird.
No, that's 100%. But the thing is, at the same time, I don't want to call this like a reboot, or this was introducing a new generation to these characters. It explained a lot with like the cheesy cliches and stuff, because kids in high school or middle school who never even heard of these characters are slowly getting into them. They realize that. So they had to basically, instead of going back and watching all the movies, they just retold everything really quick in 98 minutes.
Yeah, they changed the mythology, though. They changed a lot of the mythology. We know that Jason Voorhees drowned at Crystal Lake. They make it seem more that he drowned because of bullying. I don't know where in which Friday movie before this did they say that Jason was so scared of water that he turns into like a shivering little kid. They really made him scared in this film. Like, he stops and he shivers and he drops his machete. He would always kill them in the water.
They drew a lot of that bullying thing with him being deformed. Again, I'm throwing the movie out there again. We got to review it at some time, guys. That's a heavy influence pull from Pumpkinhead, because that dude was the deformed kid that got heavily bullied too.
You're talking about Hatchet.
Pumpkinhead.
Well,
it's a storyline that's been recycled many times. Yeah, and then the same thing with Freddy. I mean, this just makes it look like he was a, child molester that gets murdered by the townspeople, which we all do know. But in some of the mythology of the film, he actually made a deal with demons to give him these supernatural powers, which they didn't even bring up in this one. They just changed the mythology altogether.
17 different revises. It's going to happen.
When it comes to Jason's scared of water, but you got to remember that took place in a dream. So they never really explored Jason's thoughts. So maybe in the outside, in the real world, he didn't give a shit. He was a little scared boy.
He developed the hydrophobia because he drowned.
And this movie was only 98 minutes long, like you said, but the original cut was over 2 hours long.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
I did hear that a lot of it was cut, but mostly just because the lines were just either ridiculous or the scene was unnecessary.
Would we have gotten more on the storyline as far as
maybe
the backstory?
We need Zack Snyder full cut of Freddy vs. Jason. That's what we need.
Release the final cut.
The final cut or the final guy.
Hey, so when I upload this. When I upload this on our Instagram page and stuff like that, I'm going to hashtag release the Ronnie U cut. I should say
there you go.
The final cut.
We want the cut.
The cast of characters. You know what? I didn't mind any of the characters. Jason Ritter, which is the son of John Ritter, who was in Bride of Chucky, is the main, I guess you want to call the final guy.
He's the final girl's father.
He was the one in that powder blue James Vanderbeek Dawson's Creek sweater that they recycled.
Yeah, and then along with Monica Kina, if I'm saying her name right, was the final girl. I liked her, and I'm surprised she didn't go any farther in Hollywood than she did. I think this was at her peak, this final girl. Some of them you're like, whatever, but no, she was emotionally damaged, especially with her dad lying to her about everything, and then you had what's her name, Catherine Isabel from Ginger Snaps.
Oh yeah,
yeah, she was hot.
Yeah, she was a drunk in here.
Ginger Snaps, was that a horror movie or a strip club?
Yeah, it's a werewolf movie. She's known for that.
Yeah,
okay.
Main.
That's her little thing. So
I was like, I knew a girl named Ginger Snaps once, but I don't think it was a horror movie lady.
And then
what was snapping though?
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't you like to know?
And then probably the strangest casting in this film was obviously Kelly Rollins.
That was a curveball.
Really, you got and she was in Destiny's Child, and they were hot at the time.
Yeah, she was just coming off of that, right? Wasn't she?
That might have been one of the soundtracks that was supposed to be on there. I'm a survivor.
Yeah,
they were
or Bootylicious.
Destiny's Child was actually going through like a hiatus period, so I guess she had some free time, and probably Beyonce was looking into going solo already.
Yeah, I will say I'm happy they casted Kelly, because I'm like,
I actually liked her. Yeah,
they could have easily forced, hey, we're gonna put Beyonce in it. That movie would have died.
Oh yeah,
right there.
Yeah,
and I know she doesn't really. It's not that she speaks too highly, or she doesn't really talk about this film. I think if she did a horror convention, she would get a line.
Oh yeah,
And then she, I don't even think she realizes how big this franchise and to be part of it. You know what I mean?
Well, she's very humble with her success too. She's not going to be all like Jay-Z and Beyonce. No, you can't talk to me. Like she's really a chill.
I heard she's a very approachable
performer. better than Beyonce was, personally.
Yeah, if they do like that room, like they did one time at Monsterpalooza, I believe. They had Robert Englund on one corner, and then in the other corner, they had all the final girls, like Heather Langenkamp, they had Lisa Wilcox, everybody. So if they would put her in there with them.
Thing too, is she's really she's really known in the wrestling community because she dated and was with wrestler David Otunga.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. So speaking of wrestling, this is, what we've been waiting for. What did you think of the dream sequence and the Crystal Lake finale? Like, we'll start with the dream sequence between Freddy versus Jason. Like,
I'll just say, for what Dime pointed out, the action and fight choreography was on point. It was good all the way through, very seamless, not a lot of get up. Some of it got a little extravagant, but this will be one of those rare instances where I was like, I turned my brain off and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is what you lead up to, it's just that last 15 minutes of the film is like, yes, this is what we've been waiting for.
But you know what I liked about this? That you got to see two fights. Usually when stuff like this, it's like only one. No, you saw two, in dream and reality.
Right.
And obviously the dream sequence was a little cornier, with the whole glove and the pinball thing. I thought that was great, man.
I wanted to see Freddy just like stand up and be like, all right, that's it, bitch. And like, just go out, like, like, oh.
I mean, I'll go on record to say that a lot of the CGI in this film is not good. The
but
blood
technology
is ridiculous.
Wasn't that good, though.
Yeah, I mean, at the time it was great. Looking back on it, like I said, this is a reflection of watching it today. The CGI is not good, but during that scene with the whole pinball, it doesn't look really that bad. You could, it looks really good. I did enjoy the dream fight sequence, like I had mentioned on our Jason Takes Manhattan episode. This is the only other time in a Friday's franchise where Jason really gets it handed to him by Freddy, just getting tossed around, slammed around. I like when he chops off his arms and Freddy's arms just grow right back.
Yeah, he does the whole whacking off motion thing. That was funny too.
And then you pointed it out too, SoCal. One of the other flaws, and just to piggyback off what you were saying, is there was just something up with the blood work they did in it. It was just off.
It was like Evil Dead vibes. Yeah, like they were going for like a really rich, as red as the shirt Dime is wearing right here today.
In the gravy hair, look like Santa Claus.
Well, you have two entities that are pretty much like dead and rotten. I don't think their blood would have been just like super bright red.
No, not their blood. The blood of the victim.
The victims.
Oh, okay.
The blood period in this whole. The period blood.
He's like blood period. Blood period. No.
Like Blake wakes up from his dream, and then his dad's just there chilling next to him, and his head just pops off. I'm like, what is that? Like Jason slashed him through the throat. He went to go hide. The head took 5 minutes to pop off, and then it just did right at that moment. That was kind of. I was like, that's kind of cheesy. Yeah, the little fountain shooting out, and then when Jason slashes him, that's when we get that huge bucket of red syrup just thrown on the wall.
Oh, that was a funny kill. I'm glad you mentioned that, because you can see like where you see him go for the swing and you see him stop short of it, and then they cut to that. So he's like, you didn't even get the full impact. He just went, made you look, and homeboy like exploded.
So they have this guy on the corner. He goes, okay, throw it on the wall now.
Yeah, there were many off-screen kills in this film.
Yeah, there were.
The ones you do get, you could tell are heavily CGI'd,
but the one kill I love the most, like dude getting folded up like an accordion in the bed.
That was great. And still holding his beer the whole time till the very end.
Okay, so funny enough with that kill, me being 22, 23, whatever I was, watching that, I'm like, yeah, okay, no big deal, whatever. But looking at it now at a 40-year-old with 3 bulging discs in the lower back, I'm like, oh my God, this hurts.
That's the real horror. The lumbar issues he's going to have. Oh my God.
Okay, so all right. Obviously, we're getting into the coroner's report. We'll go back to the whole, fight finale scene in a bit. But so as the coroner's report, the kill count
and the gore.
Yes.
So okay, the rave scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now
rave, R-A-V-E, everyone. We said rave scene.
I was like,
what did I say?
What did he say?
Did I say rage or rave?
It sounded like something else, but we don't have to say it.
Okay. I like the fact it was stupid funny. The guys that were getting sliced and diced, they all had the same expression on their faces, like they had just busted a nut. Just look at the expression on their face. The one guy, how am I gonna stop this maniac with a hockey mask? I'm gonna throw beer at him.
He throws beer at him.
He's just throwing
I'm gonna
beer
get him
at
drunk.
That was the second one. The guy with what's his name, Chunk. Shaq. I'm sorry, Shaq.
Chunk.
He throws the Everclear on him. He throws liquor on him, and then he sets him on fire. The other guy throws beer on him and like puts him out. It's
Children of the Corn sequence where you see him going through like the cornfield on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, you know what's funny about that? Okay, that scene. What was funny because you know when Fatso was running out of the cornfield.
Oh
so
yeah.
right then and there, when you see him and they're panning in close,
Mm-hmm.
you can obviously tell he has fake blood in his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's holding it in his mouth. So when the machete hits him, okay, now it's time to spit out. Like that, I was like, dude, that's so obvious.
I wanted to say
He looked like he had a bunch in his mouth. He's like,
It's still funny. And then they're running, hacking up people.
When they do that rave kill, I like when he slashes one guy and somehow it also hits the beer keg. And then when that one guy is like bleeding out profusely, he's like,
that's the guy I was talking about. Yeah.
Sound.
What's her Catherine Isabel's character? Gib. That's a stupid name. Anyway,
Gib.
you know, she dies in the dream sequence. Obviously, it's funny how if it was my friend, I would at least try to drag the body as far away from that scene. No effort whatsoever. Okay, let's go. You know.
Yeah. They just pass by it, see it on the floor, and they're like, "Oh my god, my friend! Like, no time for that. Just leave her." And they just run.
They're like, "Okay."
I will give the beatdown props though. I'm actually seeing it in the background how TJ normally watches them, and I'm fortunate enough this time around I can have it in the background. And dude, Freddy is putting the bricks to Jason like a redheaded stepchild. I mean, he's whooping his ass.
Yeah, you get most of the gore in this film. You get most of the gore just within their fight in the real world.
Okay,
yeah,
you know, speaking of that whole sequence, okay, obviously what made this scene was the song that was played as they were getting down. I know it's on the soundtrack, but I don't remember what band sang it or what, you know, the music wise. Jason Ritter's character, you got what he wants, now he's fighting Jason. He's ruined, you know, that whole speech, and I'm not gonna leave till I see them dead. And then, you know, just him hacking and slashing and doing the elbows and stuff. I got a question for you, though. Obviously, that was a Robert Englund. But who was the stunt double for that scene?
Oh, we know.
Oh, it was...
Was it a certain wrestler?
Huh.
Who's that jumping out the sky?
Who's that jumping out the sky? R.E.Y. Mysterio. Here we go. Bring the mask out. The girls, they gas out. The boy just black out. Better tap out.
619.
I like that one.
Anyone want to name it?
Rey Mysterio?
No.
Yeah, it was Rey Mysterio. You know, and I was just like, now looking back, I'm like, go Rey, you know?
Yeah, I was looking for the cast list. I'm like, and Rey Mysterio popped up. I'm like, what the hell was Rey Mysterio doing in this movie?
But you know,
it means he's still pulling them $1.20 every month residual checks.
But at this time, you know, WCW was, you know, I think in the second year that it closed or something like that. So remember, he was doing the Filthy Animals in WCW.
That's right.
So like, I can imagine him. Yeah, he's doing these like kicks and stuff like that. And you know what? Like, it worked. Like to this day, I still get goosebumps for that scene.
Yeah, like Rey Mysterio, when you see him in wrestling, he looks like he's a little guy. He looks like he's so much smaller than everyone else, but that's just because every other wrestler is so huge. He's actually 5'6".
Yeah.
He's actually taller than Robert Englund.
He's tiny.
You know, I'm 5'7", so like, yeah, but this guy could probably still kick my ass, you know.
And to think, Ray is already in his early 50s, and because of the treatments he's getting with stem cells and taking care of his body, he's still going at an incredible level right now.
Especially with his like spoiled little brat son, Dominic.
Yep.
Down.
So when I heard about that, I was like, holy crap, really? I was like, oh, that's awesome. Totally, we jumped over the corner reports. We started, but we're like, no, we want to see them fight. Also, I don't know if you guys remember, Zach Ward was did a cameo in there. Little Scott Ferguson.
Yeah.
From Christmas Story.
Dave from Christopher Titus comedy show.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it was Titus, right?
That's why I had that correlation with the whole psych ward scene, because they did an episode when they go see.
I love how you compare to two different worlds and like, oh, maybe that was like a nod to this and that. I'm like,
it's like SoCal
you do
points
that
out,
a lot.
it's recycled stuff. You see stuff being recycled, you get correlations with it.
It's funny because I have it on the background now, and it's exactly that scene. You know, apparently he took his life, or Freddy took his life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like 2 deaths that Freddy Krueger had killed in this film.
I'm
And
glad you said that, because that was the one thing that tripped me out, that SoCal said prior to us actually recording, that this is the one movie where his kill count was like, whoa, what happened there?
Yeah.
Yeah, Freddy didn't get many kills in this one.
Yeah, because Jason was doing all his blood work for him.
Exactly.
He was sitting back going, go ahead, wear yourself out, big man, wear yourself out.
But also, you know, I also think too is probably because at the time I think he was in his 50s, maybe, Robert Englund.
Yeah, that could be it. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
they kind of
sounds
like,
about
okay,
right.
they did it. They worked around his physicality and how he could do. So that could be a possibility why he didn't. Oh, I was gonna kill him. Oh, but Jason killed him. You know, kind of beat him to the punch. Kind of type
TJ
thing.
putting poor Robert
Yeah.
on blast.
They did do that once, and I like that scene when he's about to kill Gib in the locker, and all of a sudden her chest just explodes and it just sprays all over him. He's like, "That was mine."
She's mine. But no, like, you know, so when that happened and the blood splattered on his face and he just kind of wipes it like, oh, what happened? That's how he looked. Like, I had this in the bag, kind of type thing.
We're talking about Scary Terry.
Scary
I'm
Terry.
Scary Terry, bitch.
Well, another thing, I mean, Ronnie Yu, he's been known for the martial arts. You guys are talking about fight sequences. He uses a lot of camera angles, camera speeds to get these fight scenes in, just to get that action impact. So, you know, you'll notice it slowing down, speeding up, slowing down. That's another thing that like Ronnie Yu loves doing.
It looked really good.
Yeah,
It looked really good.
Especially with like, you know, Freddy coming out of the water, just that slow motion.
Yeah.
You know, and
he went on record in interviews that he goes, these are 2 iconic characters. We're not going to just put them in some mediocre fight. He said he took a lot of inspiration from pro wrestling and how to portray this fight, especially in this final act.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ray was probably the one talking to him, like, hey, we're going to do it this way and this way. We're going to rock and roll.
I said pro wrestling, but I said pro wrestling, but he said, you know, WWF. I'm like, no, pro wrestling.
I'm glad that you brought back up Ronnie Yu, Dime. He had a lot of his own opinion when it came to the art direction and costume direction that he wanted Freddy and Jason to look in this film. Like we had kind of mentioned earlier about this Jason being, his skin looks really rotted. He's extremely tall and more slender. He has that one little wonky eye. But even from even from the very beginning of this film, though, it starts off with Freddy giving a little bit of a backstory to himself, and then you see his teeth. And he has like these really sharp, bloody teeth, and his eyes have like these bloody veins of them. And you think, oh, is this how Freddy's going to look in this film? Because they do change how he looks throughout the franchise. But then when you see him in the very next scene, he has like messed up teeth and the scary eyes are gone. So I was kind of like wondering if they just were switching between, not sure which version to use. I think they come back at the end when he has like a devil form and he has like the pointy ears, and then he gets like the sharp teeth back again. It's like, if you could shapeshift and be anything, I guess be the most scariest version of what you can be. What did you guys think about the costume design in this film for Freddy and Jason?
I didn't mind it. It was
the
good.
only problem I had was with Jason, because his skin looked way too leathery for me.
Oh, he looked burnt, like just burnt.
But in the back, like the back of his head, it just looked like a Halloween costume. It literally looked like a leather freaking like hood that he was wearing.
I think you had said it earlier, Zom. I do have to agree. Like this version of Jason, I did not mind. I did not like the wonky eye. I kind of like the eyeless version.
Yeah,
Jason.
It gives it more. That
if they would have did that, I would have been cool. But I think what irritated me the most was the pieces of strand, like loose hair. I didn't like that at all.
Dude, Sea Hag from Popeye. I was like, oh my god, what did they do to poor
You know,
Jason?
and you're fighting a guy with a glove full of claws. You think he would grab somewhat hair, go snip, snip, you know?
Ronnie Yu did pick Ken Kersinger, not only because of his height, but because he felt that he had very expressive eyes, and he wanted this Jason to be very expressive with his eyes, since Jason has no voice.
Yeah, that'd be the only way to actually tell the storyline. So I agree with you.
I understood that. Yeah, I get that part, but I still didn't like it.
So I know he said coroner's report, but who's going to talk about the kill count? We mentioned one person had a very low one, but what was the kill count?
I mean, you know, we don't really here at the Final Guys kind of change it up. We just talk about the kills that we love. You said, Zom, the whole bed scene was your favorite kill.
Oh, that was great.
Yeah. What about you, Dime? What was your favorite kill in this?
Oh, mine was the bed scene as well. For sure.
You know me and Dime about bed scenes.
Oh, yeah. I love being in bed. We're in bed together right now.
Oh, hey, now easy there, sir.
They share like a triple X bed.
Oh man, I know the coroner's report, kill count. Yes, we do switch up the name just a little bit. If we want to throw a number out there, I mean, I got personally 22 kills with an asterisk because these movies usually have an asterisk. Kills off scene. Did people really die? If you want to throw Freddy and Jason on there, it could go up to 24 on my count. But when it comes to my favorite kill scene, it is when Freddy possesses Freeberg and he's planning on putting Jason into that sleep state. And he has those two vials behind his back. It's funny because he injects Jason, right? Pushes all that trank into him. And then you could tell he left his body because the guy wakes up like after and he looks all surprised that Jason's right in front of him and he just gets hacked right down the middle. And the funny part about it is his top half flies around.
It twists.
And it lands on his head.
And it's funny because it seems like the upper part fainted and fell to the ground, but his body was still like his lower part was still standing.
That had to be my favorite kill. Just the gore of it, the comedy in it, the fact that the plan actually worked to get Jason to go to sleep. Now, it leads to my big question is I wonder why they wanted to put Jason back in Crystal Lake. They felt, oh, he'll have home field advantage and we'll get him out of the town. That was like everybody wins. But Crystal Lake is a very far distance away. Why not just put them in some abandoned building somewhere far away? Why did you have to go all the way to Crystal Lake?
Yep.
So you could have helped Jason
him further while he's all tranked out. He'll wake up.
Let's bring him back home. Like they invented Uber before Uber, you know?
And they got him there in 10 minutes.
Oh,
I know.
And then the fact that Kelly Rowland had to give him CPR because he was dude, that was gross.
I love how that's their reaction. He's drowning.
Yeah.
Go give him the CPR.
What was his name? Vinderman?
Linderman.
You could do this. You could shut up, you know? Just like why you're encouraging to give CPR to a serial killer like that, you know?
He's so quick on his excuse. He's like, you know this. I've had asthma since I was 6 years old. You know this. I can't possibly do this.
Oh, damn.
And the other guy's like, dude, he has asthma. Get in there.
Yeah, like just yell at him, like, you know. And the thing is, obviously his character was all up on Laurie, but towards the end, I think they kind of fell for each other, like Kia and
Linderman,
because you see it at the end. That's what I'm talking about. But you know, unfortunately, they end up dying.
Yeah, that would have been some good character development right there. Is that, like you said, originally Kia disliked him because he was always going for Laurie. But if there had been some sort of love connection between him and Kia, that would have been something that could have happened.
They would have had a family by now. And she probably would have got her nose job.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course, it had its bloody moments throughout the movie, but obviously the gore was turned up to like 12 to 20, whatever you want to call it, in the final act. And there was blood left and right. My favorite death scene has to be, I'm going to go with Laurie chopping off Freddy's head. And you know, Jason giving her a hand with his claw on his own chest. You know what I mean? I think just leading up to that kill was so brutal, especially when Jason was just, and in that moment, you slightly feel sorry for Jason because as he's crawling away, he's just hacking the crap out of him, and blood is popping out everywhere. Like, dude, this guy is really he's finally gonna meet his maker. You know?
You remember when Freddy chops off Jason's fingers and it makes him drop his machete, right?
Yeah.
And Freddy sticks the machete into Jason. That makes sense. But at the same time as that, Jason stuck his nubby hand with no fingers into Freddy's chest somehow. He just forced it in there. And
that's how strong he is. That's how strong he is. But did you see when he chopped off his fingers and he looks at his hands like, he didn't care.
As the blood squirts out.
Do you think he realized in the horror movie world, I can grow him back?
Exactly. See,
he's like Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z. When he gets his limb cut off, he just has to grunt and just pops out another.
The taking Jason back to Crystal Lake was one of the story plots that I thought was kind of odd. And right alongside it, when Laurie's like, okay, this is the plan, guys. Inject me with this tranquilizer and then wake me up in 15 minutes. If you get trank put into you, how are you going to wake up in 15 minutes?
Adrenaline. The next
that was never going to work.
He was riding the slipstream.
What does Zom say? Movie magic.
Movie magic.
Well, no, see, it would have been movie magic if it would have worked. The comedy of it was that they showed the reality and they're trying to shake her and touch her and she does not wake up. That was the funny part about it.
And so they throw her arm in fire.
Yeah, that'll
wake anybody up.
They just throw her arm in the fire, like it's burned. Just toss her; she won't wake up.
So before we get to our final thoughts and the ratings for like this episode and this film, now the ending is it's not confusing. It's just it depends on who you ask and how they felt watching it. Me personally, who do you think won? I think Jason won.
I agree with that.
I agree with Jason.
Yeah, I agree. I said Jason.
You know, because
so, I mean, he had his whole body.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
and how was he holding the head if he had no fingers?
Oh yeah, right. Because he had the machete in one hand. Maybe like being underwater, he got some like sticky residue and just.
The water is his power.
I guess I don't know, but
lake mud.
Yeah, lake mud, right? And obviously
movie magic.
The
movie magic.
What's that little expression?
We need to have like an audio insert for that, like a little ring.
Yeah, like what was that? Like the more you know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And it has like a star. That's what I think of.
And knowing is half the battle.
Knowledge is power.
It's one of those inspirational quotes and stuff. You know, obviously with the wink of Freddy's eye, everyone thought, oh, there's going to be a sequel. 1 year goes by, 2 years goes by, 20 years later, we have not got a sequel. Technically on film, but we did get a sequel in a series of comic books. You know, this time it adds another.
That's something I didn't know. I'm gonna have to look into that. That sounds pretty gnarly.
So it was Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, another horror icon.
6 issues, right?
Yeah, actually there was 2. There was.
Oh, it's just 2. Oh.
No. You know, there were 6 issues. There was 2 different stories. They had the Freddy versus Jason versus Ash, and then they had another one. I own both, and I can't remember the second one. I think it was called Dream Warriors or Dream Survivors. I don't remember, but that wasn't as good as the first one. So it takes place 5 years after the events of Freddy versus Jason, and it still keeps the corniness from the film into the book because Laurie and Will go back to the Jason Voorhees house 5 years later. Why would you do that? And in the book,
because they're dumb. That's why.
And in this case, they were. Because they're like, oh, I just want closure. Laurie wanted closure. Well, guess what? Both of them found out the hard way. Jason killed both of them in the book.
They got closure.
Got closure. You know, I believe.
Their coffin closure.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Laurie got gutted, which was a horrible way to go. Where Ash comes into play was they had a big S-Mart. During the holiday seasons, the manager didn't think any of the punk kids didn't take holidays seriously, so they had to hire their veteran, you know, Ashy Williams. I call him Ashy because he's classy. So they hired him, but, you know, yeah, he took the job, but he was actually looking for the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead, at the same time. That's why he transferred to Crystal Lake. It was a really good storyline, at least for the first book it was. They wanted to add him in the sequel. Everyone wanted to do it, but New Line Cinema didn't think it was profitable, even though Freddy vs. Jason made a buttload of money for them. And that's what I don't get when it comes to movie studios and horror movies. You have these characters that still make money and bring in an audience, but you don't want to continue forward. But yet you're continuing to make crappy films like The Conjuring. And
yeah, I mean, you have to take
Insidious. Insidious to me only went so far as like I enjoyed the first 2. After that, it was all just money making. I mean, I know you guys reviewed part 5 on YouTube, and I think you guys said you enjoyed it.
Yeah, we're fans of the franchise.
But you get what I'm saying. They're very selective when it comes to horror.
For that trio, it would have been difficult to pull it off, even though it would have been a moneymaker for just diehard fans. But to cater to a bigger audience, it would have been difficult because you would have, in a sense, completely overshadowed Jason because of the comedic writing that would go on for Ash and the comedic writing that would go on for Freddy. It would completely drown out Jason because he can't respond.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, the best choice they could have done is just put that movie Put that movie script into the hands of Sam Raimi and say, this is what we want, make it happen. And he would have given us a good story and a good movie, and Bruce Campbell would have been way on board.
And I remember shortly after this movie came out, there was talks of doing like Chucky versus Leprechaun or Michael Myers versus Pinhead or some shit, you know?
Yeah, like it started the resurrections of crossovers. And I don't want
I
to say
still
that
believe Myers and Jason would have been an incredible story to tell.
That would have been good.
They're both silent characters. So
yeah, and that's the thing. That could have been cool, but it could also have been like a dull movie because they don't talk.
Very
so you're
true.
going to have all these supporting characters talking for them and
but
explaining to the crowd, oh, this is why this happened and this is why that happened, you know?
Yeah, get this. Like, it could have had Laurie from this movie meet Laurie from Halloween. Could have been the Lauries trying to escape the silent killers.
And they could do that typical, like, cliche scene. Laurie and both of them, you know?
Missed opportunities.
This is the second film. The first was obviously Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. And then about a year later, you had Alien versus Predator.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you had years later, you finally got in 2020, which was Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for that one last crossover, which we'll review. And yes, that episode is coming when RoboCop versus Terminator.
It's coming.
And I think with the right script, and they front the money and put money into the CGI and the practical effects, that movie will be phenomenal. Will they do it?
So too.
Probably not, but with the exception of RoboCop versus Terminator and all the other films I just named, what is your best crossover film within those ones I just named, including Freddy vs. Jason?
Personally, just because even though the writing was weak, I just like seeing them both on film, and I thought it was kind of cool with the fighting. Alien versus Predator.
I would stick with this one. Friday the 13th, Freddy versus Jason. I would stick with this one if it came between those. I did feel the writing was weak on Alien versus Predator.
As much as I love Frankenstein versus the Wolfman, this one for sure, my favorite.
I agree with you guys. Alien versus Predator, I didn't care for only because one, it was PG-13, and look what happens. You know,
you're turning your back on Predator.
No, you know, I probably won't count Frankenstein meets the Wolfman because that's what started it, and that's a timeless classic. But my favorite out of all the crossover films, it has to be Godzilla vs. Kong.
Oh yeah,
that is my number one pick, and I will go with that. Freddy vs. Jason is second, and then Frankenstein, Wolfman, and I probably have to say Alien vs. Predator last.
And they are making a sequel to that, right?
Yeah, they're making another one.
What is it called? The Forgotten Kingdom, or that movie was great. And I hope at some point or another we do an episode based on kaijus.
See, TJ, I really did like Kong and Godzilla, but I feel there was even some moments in that where the writing was kind of weak as well. I preferred Godzilla King of Monsters more than Godzilla versus Kong. I liked seeing those titans go up against each other. All of the Godzilla.
Well, I understand why you like it. Okay, if you didn't know, like the director of King of the Monsters directed Trick or Treat. That's why. Don't bullshit me, man. I know.
There's nothing wrong with Trick or Treat, man. Come on.
I just love seeing those monsters get remade, and I feel like the way that they delivered them was so good. When you see like that Hydra that's in the air, and it looked amazing. Mothra looked great.
And it's funny, a lot of Godzilla fans trash King of the Monsters. King of the Monsters was great, dude. They're like, it didn't really focus on the characters, and I'm like, who goes to a Godzilla film to talk about human characters? Just like Freddy versus Jason, you don't go for you see Freddy, you want to see Freddy versus Jason beat the crap out of each other.
Let's take a step into the bloodier realm of this podcast. What do you guys feel is your gore score for this film?
No, 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Yeah, 5 out of 5.
I'm going 2 on this one, man. I didn't see enough gore for a Freddy and Jason movie. There was definitely not enough gore for me.
I'm going to be generously kind and give it a 3 just because what we talked about SoCal at the beginning was the incorrect usage of the blood cadence in the movie. I would have gave it a higher rating because there was a decent amount, but I'm going to just stick at a 3 with it.
That's very fair. Myself, I went back and forth on this. I was going to give it a much lower score originally. That last scene, the fight between Freddy and Jason at the end, really did save it. And when I thought about what we get in this film, if you think about all the different types of gore, arms being cut off, limbs being cut off, we get people cracked in half, decapitations, the score went up a bit, and I'm going to give this film a 3.5 out of 5. It's not constant, and some of the CGI for them are so bad.
So overall rating for the movie from 1 to 5 machetes, I'll probably give it a 4.5.
Taking out of 3.
I give it a 3.5.
Man, I did not expect me to be the lowest score on this one, guys.
Mr.
I know.
Freddy vs. Jason is my
Damn
favorite.
youngsters.
Well, yeah, because, Freddy, we were going by, if you guys look back at the last episode of Jason Takes Manhattan, we were saying, which version of Jason do you like? And I do like this Jason. I do think he's unique. And aside from, Kane Hodder, a really good version of Jason. So I like his appearance. But as a film, after rewatching it,
You think he's unique because he can blink.
Yeah, unique. Like I said, the writing is bad. The CGI is bad. The times of the film when actors are supposed to be having an argument just seems so forced and not realistic. This film got a 3 out of 5 machetes. And just right in the middle. I mean, it's not a bad movie. It's definitely not a bad movie. And I will still continue to rewatch it, but it's just not a great movie. It's not just, I would recommend this to everyone and I would stand by saying this is an amazing film. And if you watch it, you would have been changed.
If you're a Freddy and Jason fan, you could definitely watch this movie. It's enjoyable, man.
All right,
Definitely.
Freaks Geeks. I think we spend way too much time once again.
We did spend a lot of time on this film. That's true. But this is a 20th anniversary. And when we give anniversary episodes, we got to give them a little extra love and a little extra time. This film survived 20 years, still being watchable. So it kind of earned it.
Gentlemen, I think it is time to make like a tree and get out of here. For myself, Toxic J, along with
Dimebag the Clown.
SoCal Leatherface.
Richard Zom.
So there's only one thing to say now.
Say the line.
Come on, SoCal, say it.
Be kind and rewind.
Yes.
Yeah!